Welcome to Bakleben. Today we are making flat rolls. They look like this, beautiful double rolls. This is how they look inside, and when you break them open, you can hear and see how fluffy and yet crispy these rolls are. I'm already excited to show it to you. For our flat rolls, we need 500 grams of wheat flour, we need 6 grams of yeast, which is very little, 20 grams of sugar, baking malt and salt, and of course water. A note at this point, this dough needs to mature for about 6 to 8 hours. If you use only 2 grams of yeast instead of 6 grams and make the dough in the evening, cool it, not necessarily in the refrigerator, just cool it and then let it sit overnight. Make rolls from it. In other words, simply take the dough in the morning, shape rolls from it, let them rise briefly, bake them, and you'll have very fresh rolls, quickly and without much effort. But I'll start making them now and show you how it's done. By the way, I've often seen them in the east of Germany and they can make them really well. They are incredibly delicious. I can only really recommend them. I mean, the rolls. The dough is incredibly simple. First I take the yeast, crumble it into my bowl, add water. Then of course, as always, mix the dry ingredients. Salt, vanilla, malt powder. By the way, you can also use sugar instead of malt powder. It's also described like that in the recipe. Then I spread it a little. The whole thing goes into the ball. And on top goes the butter. And that's basically all there is to this dough. However, due to the long resting time, I tell you, it's a delicacy. We now knead at medium level, good speed, for about 5 minutes. And then I'll explain to you how to proceed with the whole bun. The dough has now been in the machine for 5 minutes. At medium level, so it's well kneaded. It's also well combined, just like that. Don't be surprised that it's a bit firmer now. It's supposed to be. I now open it up a little, make it a bit round, just as always, give it a bit of structure. And now, the dough goes into the bowl, and then it stays for 6 to 8 hours. 8 hours is better than 6. Covered, as I just mentioned, simply in a cool place. Not warm, not cold, just right. And then we make the roll. The dough has now rested for 8 hours. It looks like this, and if you look closely, you can see how wonderfully it has risen. Bubbles here exactly as it should be. It has now developed a great aroma, and of course you should use that for nice rolls. Not much happens. I now take the dough out. In the process, it naturally collapses a bit, which is completely normal. And from the dough, I now make 10 pieces. You can weigh it, then it's about 83 grams, 84 grams. I'll try to see if I can manage that. That should actually work. I always divide it once in the middle like this. That roughly works out. So now I make my pieces round. Just make them lightly, loose, round, not too elaborate. I place them with the seam side up. I have now made my dough pieces a bit round. When shaping them round, I naturally notice, do they really have the full weight? Always well distributed as it should be. If not, you can always add a little bit more. So that's not crucial. Now they stay here for a moment and not for long. Now I take a little specialty. For these rolls, I use a deep baking tray. It looks like this. You all know this from the oven. You surely have it at home in your oven. Also in baking life. I have this deep baking tray twice because I will place the rolls here in pairs. And then I will use the second tray as a cover on top. And that's how they are baked. For those who don't have two trays that can be placed directly on top of each other, it also works in a single tray, and you simply cover it with aluminum foil. The trick is, for the first 15 minutes, these rolls should be baked covered at 230 degrees in the oven. They develop wonderfully there. For the last few minutes, 5 to 7 minutes, you then remove the cover and bake them until they are golden brown, but we'll see that in a moment. Now I'm going to do the following. I'm going to arrange them once more in the order I placed them here, roughly, once again tightly round. Briefly dip them in flour and then place them on the tray. As I said, once dipped in flour and then placed next to each other, preferably on the side where there's not too much flour. And now I'm going to prepare the tray accordingly. So as you can see, my rolls are now lightly placed next to each other, not pushed together firmly, as they will expand on their own. I'm now turning my tray away, taking a second tray and cover the whole thing. I'll let it rest for 20 minutes now, then I'll make a small cut in the rolls, and then they go into the oven. See you soon. The dough pieces have now rested for 20 minutes, covered with the top tray. Now away with it. Since the dough is very good in its consistency, really nice, compact, yet soft, they won't rise higher now. They shouldn't either. They will get bigger in the oven. I'm now making a small cut everywhere. Not deep at all, just touch, pull over, done. Just as they are now. Do I cover them again with the lid? And with this cover, they now go into the oven at 230 degrees. Well, and technically speaking, as everyone can imagine, unfortunately, there are no pictures this time of how the rolls rise. It's not possible. There's a lid on it. So I'll show you shortly how it looks when it's done. Our flat rolls are now out of the oven. They were in there for exactly 21 minutes. You can see how they look, very delicious. And they smell wonderful. I can only warmly recommend that you try baking them yourself. Have fun with it. Thank you for watching. As always, you can find the recipe here in our video description. I wish you a good time and see you next time at Bakleben. Bye.